Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a comparison between the Ninja Foodi Dual Zone Air Fryer with Megazone and the new Ninja Double Stack XL Air Fryer. Which one of these is a better choice for you? Watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. This is the Ninja Dual Zone Air Fryer with the Megazone, and this is the Ninja Double Stack XL Air Fryer. If you look at the features of the Megazone Air Fryer, you get air frying, obviously, roasting, baking, proofing, so you can make bread. There's a reheat function, a dehydrate function, and also an option to keep things warm. If you select any one of these presets, you'll see that it just goes ahead and changes the temperature and time for you, just to make things a little bit easier. If you're trying to do something that doesn't seem to have a preset on this machine, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you're gonna have to experiment with different settings a little bit. You can see that it has these three different things blinking right here. You have Zone 1, Zone 2, and a Megazone. What that means is if we open up our machine, you can see that the compartment in here is divided up. Zone 1 over here has a 5.5 quart capacity, and again, Zone 2 has got a 5.5 quart capacity as well. You can cook in either one of these zones, and you can actually cook two different types of things in the two zones at the same time also if you want to. You also have another option called the Megazone, and to use that, you would remove the center divider just like that, and then you'd be able to use the entire area inside the machine to cook 11 quarts worth of food. That comes in really handy if you're cooking a big piece of meat like a ham or something like that. Basically, when you're using the Megazone, it's just combining Zone 1 and Zone 2 together and cooking in tandem. Down on the bottom, you have two crisper plates that have a non-stick coating on them. And you can see that these are also removable as well. They're kind of held in here with these rubber feet. It can be a little bit of a pain in the neck to get these in and out sometimes because there's quite a bunch of friction holding them in. That may loosen up over time, but for me, they're still just as hard to get in there as they always were. But honestly, I don't really think that's much of a problem. The big pot in here also has a non-stick coating on it as well, so cleanup is pretty easy on this thing. The only really problem I came across with the cleanup is the fact that you do have the possibility of stuff splattering up onto the heating elements and the fans up top here. If you get anything on those, it's going to be a real pain in the neck to clean them because the heating elements aren't removable, so you'd have to get a wire brush or something like that in order to clean up around in here. I've cooked quite a few things in this machine and you can see it's still pretty clean. So I don't know how much of a problem that is because when it is cooking, it is blowing air directly down on everything. So that might help keep it a little bit cleaner, but definitely that's a concern and it is something to think about. One other thing about cleaning this machine that's a little bit of a bummer is the fact that if you're just using one zone over here and you're just leaving this empty because you just want to cook something small, this entire container really is just one container with a little divider in the middle. So if you're just cooking over here, you're still gonna have to clean this entire tub anyway because stuff is gonna drip over onto this side. So that's annoying. I don't know if I'd call it a deal breaker or anything, but it is what it is. As far as operation on this machine goes, it's pretty easy. Once you select which zone you want to cook in, then the lights turn off on everything else, and then you just sort of select what you want to do, put your stuff in, start it up, and you're good to go. If you were to select Megazone, you'd still control everything the exact same way as if you were using one of the zones, except when you start it up, both of the fans are going to come on and it's going to cook evenly amongst the entire pan. If you wanted to cook two different things, you can click Zone 1, select what you wanted to do, whether it be like baking or roasting or whatever. We'll say air fry, we'll leave it there. And then I can select Zone 2 and select something different, like dehydrating for some reason. And then down here, you would see that we have both Zone 1 and Zone 2 active because we're cooking two different things in the two zones. And then if I were to start up, it would go ahead and start them both up at the same time. In addition to the regular features, this machine also features a couple of extra things. One's called Smart Finish and one's called Match Cook. What Smart Finish does is if you're cooking two different things in the two zones, this will ensure that they finish at the same time. So if I were to air fry for 20 minutes in Zone 1 and then in Zone 2, let's say I were to bake for 10 minutes like that, then if I hit Smart Finish, it's gonna know that the bake is much shorter than the air fry. Therefore, when I start it up like that, you can see that Zone 2 is on hold and Zone 1 is already cooking. When this reaches 10 minutes, it'll go ahead and turn this other zone on so they both finish at the same time. pretty cool feature. Match Cook is designed to be a time saver in that it'll take whatever I'm cooking in zone 1 and copy the settings over to zone 2 so I don't have to re-enter all that stuff. So let's say I'm cooking in zone 1 and I want to bake at 325 for 15 minutes. If I were to hit Match Cook, then you can see now both zones are blinking. That means it's just going to make both zones 325 for 15 minutes. It's pretty convenient and it does save you a little bit of time, but on this machine it's a little bit weird for me. That's because this machine already has a Megazone function, and what the Megazone function is basically that exact same thing. You see, if I were to start this machine up and just hit Megazone like that and go to bake at 325 for 15 minutes and start up, it's still going to bake at 325 for 15 minutes using both zones. So really on this machine, the utility of that is a little bit debatable. However, with the Match Cook, you do have the ability of changing time and temperature on zone 1 or zone 2 on the fly after you start. You might need to do that if you are cooking two different things at the same temperature and time, but then you realize that one side is going to need to cook a little bit longer, and that might be because you have two different types of food in there that require the same time and temperature, but for whatever reason, you're just not quite getting there on one side. So you'd be able to make those changes without stopping the machine and starting over. The Ninja Double Stack Air Fryer has a little bit different approach. This one has the same features I just mentioned as far as the Smart Finish and the Match Cook go. This also has two different zones, but they're stacked on top of each other instead of being side by side. If I remove one of these baskets, you'll see that this essentially looks exactly the same as the containers in the dual zone air fryer. In fact, this also holds 5.5 quarts, and if I take the rack out of here, you can see that it has a really similar crisping plate as well. However, although this looks the same at first glance, the basket design is a little bit different. First of all, it does come with this wire rack. Using that, you can fit a lot more stuff into your machine if they're all dissimilar. You can see that this basket has these little nubs here, which is where that rack was sitting, but it also serves a second purpose. You can remove the crisper plate, turn it around, slide it back into the machine like this, and now the rubber pads line up with those nubs, so you'd be able to use the crisper plate to raise the elevation of what you have inside the machine. The reason you'd want to do that is if you look on the inside of the air fryer, you can see that the fans and the heating elements are all the way in the back of the machine. That's why the grates on the baskets are on the back right here. So if you have a crisper plate installed in the upper position, or if this is on the bottom and you're using the wire rack, you can see that the air is going to come into the machine from the back over here, and you're going to get airflow above and below your food. That really changes the way this cooks, and it really gives you a chance to have a little bit more even heating on everything in this basket. With a traditional air fryer like the dual zone, all your air is coming from the top and going downward. That means it's very difficult for anything at the very bottom to cook. Remember, these machines are air fryers, they're not regular ovens, so they rely really heavily on airflow. If the air can't flow to what you want to cook, then it's not going to cook. You can see that even though the heating elements and fans are in the back, they still do work in a similar fashion. In fact, from a cleaning perspective, we have a similar issue to what we have with the other air fryer. Back here where the fan and the heating element are very difficult to get to. So if anything gets down in there, like bits of food or grease or anything like that, it's going to be really, really hard to clean it out. However, one thing to note is that I have cooked quite a bit of stuff in this machine, and I haven't gotten anything on that back surface yet, really. It could have something to do with this basket design, because it does make things a little bit harder to get back there. I mean, you're not really going to have a whole lot of food passing back through this grate unless they're really small pieces. And if you have a lot of oil popping off your proteins, those tend to go upward, not backward. And that just goes into the ceiling of the machine, which is a lot easier to clean. As far as the preset features on this machine go, it's really similar to the dual zone. They both have the dehydrate, reheat, roast, bake, and air fry function. This one has an air broil function, and the dual zone has that keeps warm function and the proofing function also. The way you use the double stack is almost exactly like the way you use the dual zone. It's got the two zones, you select the zone you want, you select your function, it'll show you the preset time and temperature, and you can change those with the temp and time buttons and the dial. So you pick temperature, change it with the dial, pick time, also change it with the dial, and then you're all set. If you want to do something else in zone 2, you can, and if you want to use that smart finish function so they both get done at the same time, you can do that as well. This machine also has that same match cook function from the dual zone, so you can just set everything up for one zone and it'll copy it over to zone 2 for you. But the difference with this machine is there's no Megazone because these are both separate baskets and you can't really join them together. But like I said before, the match cook is supposed to cook both zones at the same time and temp for you. So most of the time you're probably not going to miss that Megazone function on this machine, unless of course you're cooking things that are really large that would need that 11 quart capacity. In that case, that would really be something to think about for you.
Of course!
This machine also has an extra feature called Double Stack Pro. With the Double Stack Pro turned on, you can actually do 4 completely different things in the 2 zones. So maybe in the bottom zone you could stack some asparagus and fish, and then maybe in the upper zone you can stack some steaks and potatoes. If you have Double Stack Pro selected, it'll run the fans a little bit higher so it can push a little bit more air through there so you get proper circulation. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. I did a little bit of testing on both machines. On the Ninja Foodi Megazone air fryer, I tried a few different things. I tried air frying some curly fries with onion rings using both zones. Those both came out really good, but keep in mind if you're going to air fry and you're going to fill up your baskets, you're going to have to pause during your air fry and stir your contents around. That's not really a knock against Ninja because it's something you have to do in any air fryer. You have to move your ingredients around, otherwise the air is not going to get to the stuff on the inside and therefore it's not going to cook. I also dehydrated some beef in the machine for about 9 hours to make beef jerky, and that just came out fantastic. Also, I simultaneously air fried some carrots and roasted some meatloaf. So that gave me a chance to try 2 different cooking techniques in the 2 different zones for 2 different things that take different amounts of time to cook. Those both finished up together and the resulting meatloaf was really good. On the Double Stack XL, I probably did a little bit more testing, and that's only because there were some rumors about the machine not cooking properly, and I really want to do some extra testing on it to see if I could duplicate the results. For air frying, I put tater tots in one zone along with chicken fingers in the second zone. The chicken fingers just went in one layer on the wire rack, and the tots I just poured into the basket. So obviously during the air fry I did have to pause and stir the tots around a little bit just to make sure they cooked evenly. The fingers were up on the rack, and since the air didn't have any problem getting circulation since they were raised up a little bit, those cooked through really quickly. I did the beef jerky test on this machine as well, and it cooked the beef jerky the exact same way the other machine did in about the same amount of time. Also, I cooked 2 whole chickens, 1 in each zone. I set those for match cook and just let them go. But I did notice that zone 1 up top does cook slightly quicker than zone 2 does down at the bottom. I did notice that a little bit with the tater tots too, because I did cook those again in zone 1 all by themselves just to see how much time it was going to take, and it was a little bit faster up there. Also, I used the Smart Finish function to cook some salmon and asparagus. Again, the salmon was raised up and didn't have any problem cooking evenly all the way through, and I air fried the asparagus and did a couple of stirs on that since it was being air fried. Also, I made some little caprese sandwiches. Those cooked perfectly fine, and those were even in the top and bottom zones. The last test I tried on the Double Stack was using the Double Stack Pro feature to cook a whole bunch of burger patties. So I took 10 85% lean beef patties, and I stuck those into both zones using both the crisper plates and the wire racks. This wasn't something that Ninja said you could or couldn't do, but I tried it anyway just to see how it worked out. And I was a little bit surprised that all the burgers came out perfectly even. They all finished at the same time and they were all cooked evenly across. So with that, I was really pleasantly surprised. One additional piece of information you might need about the Double Stack XL air fryer is that if you're using dual zone mode, just meaning you're cooking in both zones at the same time, it really changes the amount of time it takes to cook. So for instance, if I was cooking a couple of steaks just in zone 1, it would be about 15-20 minutes to cook it. But if I was cooking steaks in both zones at the same time, it would take about 10-12 minutes longer, because everything is going to be a little bit slower when you do that. To me, I think that has something to do with the maximum amount of airflow that you can get through the machine, and if you're using both zones at the same time, there's only so much air to go around, and it could have a little bit something to do with the maximum power of the machine as well. As far as noise goes, on the Double Stack XL with both zones doing an air fry, we're maxing out at about 74 decibels. And on the Megazone air fryer, a little bit quieter, topping out about 72. but it seems a little bit quieter than that. And finally, as far as size goes, the dual zone Megazone air fryer is about 13 inches tall. It's about 19 inches wide. And as far as depth goes, we're talking about 12 inches or so. So, pretty hefty footprint. The double stack is about 11 inches wide, 14.5 inches tall, but the depth is about 19 inches, so this one sits back pretty far. So the double stack XL might look like it has a smaller footprint, but it does stick out a lot farther than the dual zone does. Also, with the double stack XL air fryer, you have your ventilation on the right side of the machine, so you don't want to have anything sitting right next to it on the right side either. So that does sort of limit your options a little bit more as well. At first glance, you might think that the Ninja Double Stack XL is just a replacement for the Megazone air fryer. But as you can see, there's a few different things that are distinctly different between the two. The choice you have to make is what features are most important to you. If you'd like a little bit more information about either one of these air fryers, I do have links to both of them down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay 1 cent. If you like this video, I do have full product reviews for both of these air fryers on our channel. If you click right here, you can go directly to the one for the Ninja Double Stack XL. If you're planning on buying one, I really recommend you watch that video first. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.